Hi there, it's Jess from Minerva here today to share with you how to get the most out of your patterns, as well as showing you how versatile they can really be. Just because they come with instructions, commercial patterns should in no way hinder your creativity. Changes such as sleeve alterations and fabric choices can completely alter the personality of a garment. As always, the fabric and products I've talked about in this video will be listed below for your convenience, and bear in mind you can save this video to refer back to at a later date if you see something you'd like to try out yourself. Today I will be working with the Simplicity pattern 8734. What drew me to this pattern was the adaptability for the fit, as it's broken down into dress sizes as well as slim, average and curvy as well, so you can mix and match the pattern pieces to find the best fit for you, especially if you're slimmer in some places than you are in others. This will help you find your perfect fit if you don't have much tailoring experience. I really struggle to find patterns that don't require a lot of altering, as while I fit the standardized measurements for dress sizes, I'm only 4'11" tall, and so frequently the torsos of dresses are disproportional to my body and therefore require a lot of fiddling about to get them right, which is why I liked the empire waist design on this. Another reason I chose this pattern is I could see potential for many different personalities depending on the combinations that you mix and match together of skirt length, sleeve and sleeve design, as well as fabric choices, despite its seemingly simplistic appearance. For each of the dresses I made, I used the slim fit design as well as the B-cup template for the top. As a general rule when working with commercial patterns, I would always say to measure yourself before you start each project with a new pattern to then find out which of the dress sizes you should be working towards. Don't go off your regular high street shop dress size, as sizes vary from country to country and company to company, so what you think your size might not be what comes on the packet, and obviously you don't want to find out at the end of the progress that you've made the wrong dress size. It also comes with a template in the instructions as to work out what size cup you would be for their pattern. Again, these vary from country to country, so measure yourself before you get started. The pattern also comes with the alteration lines already drawn on, which I'll show you a close-up of in just a second, which means you can extend or shrink the pattern pieces to better fit you, and you don't have to work out where to cut those lines, they're already given. As you can see, the pattern comes with alteration lines already marked on there. As you can see, I've sellotaped up the gaps recommended for the petite sizing, has them across the waistline and on this piece as well, across the bottom of the skirt. I used both the overlocker and normal sewing machine to make all three of these dresses. While of course you can sew stretchy fabrics using a normal sewing machine, I found it was a lot more cooperative whilst working with the overlocker. I used it to bind the edges of all of the pattern pieces before I put them together, as well as directly onto the side seams to improve the durability as they would be under tension. While of course you can do this using a normal sewing machine, you would need to use a close zigzag or similar stitch, which brings me on to thread. The thread I used was this Metal Flock stretch sewing thread. This is because the elasticity would allow the seams to stretch with the fabric and reduce tension on both the fabric at the seams and the seams itself. If you haven't sewn with stretchy thread before, I guarantee you it will become your new best friend after this project. This particular thread also comes in several different colours, so you can closely match your fabric of choice. This pattern calls for stretch knit fabrics only. While these fabrics can be fiddly to work with, it shouldn't in any way put you off from trying. If you've never used a fabric like this before, make a mock-up of the pattern using a fabric that's similar to what you want to create your final dress in. And use this mock-up to make all of the mistakes on and find out where the kinks in the pattern are, so that when you come to create your final product, you've already gone up the learning curve and it should turn out as beautiful as you want it to. If you are making a mock-up, make sure that you take note of any of the changes that you've made along the way on the instructions that come with the pattern, so that you can replicate them easy for your final dress. These especially apply to areas like along the seam allowance where you've made alterations during fitting. Let's look at the first dress in more detail. For this dress, I went with the Lady McElroy's Ponte double knit fabric that has a beautiful bold royal blue and navy geometric print. This was a heavyweight fabric. The reason I went with this fabric was that the version on the packet is made up in a plain fabric, and I sometimes feel like this can put people off using a patterned print as they have no reference as to what the dress would look like made up in a different fabric, and I wanted to show that even with a pattern that can still be flattering. If you are choosing a patterned fabric for this project, I'd recommend going with a bold geometric print such as this one, or if you were a floral person, then something with a soft, big repeating motif. Detailed prints like fine polka dots, stripes, or busy floral patterns can distract from the shape of the garment. This fabric gives the dress a smart casual kind of date night feel, which is similar to the picture on the packet, but in a much more eye-catching fabric. I also chose this fabric because it's a heavy weighted fabric and I wanted to see what it would look like in contrast to the two softer choices that I made from the second and third dress, which you'll see later on. While I like the definition with the shaping detail across the midriff and the pleats at the underbust, I personally think the amount of structure it gave the sleeve was a little overwhelming on me as I have smaller shoulders, but if you like your sleeves to have a little bit of extra drama, I highly recommend using a heavier fabric like this. If you don't, then using a medium weight fabric should result in the sleeve looking more as it does on the model picture. As you use the same fabric for the interfacing around the collar as you do for the main body of the dress, I felt that this added a lot of weight around the centre bust seam, and as a result it sat quite bulky on me. On all three dresses I finished the edges with an invisible hem, so there would be no need for top stitching. Want to finish your garment off with top stitching, our site has a fantastic feature which will allow you to select a matching thread when you pick your fabric, to save you the time of scrolling through all the threads yourself to find the closest match. Overall, I like how this dress turned out. If I was going to make it again, I would perhaps use the straight sleeve option, as well as experiment with a couple of different construction methods to see if I can get a smoother finish on the neckline here. Now let's look at the second dress. This was my favourite fabric out of the three and I was in love with it the second it arrived. This fabric is a double stretch velvet knit fabric and the colour that I chose is called Petrol. The vibrancy of the colour available in this particular fabric worked really well with the manipulation in this pattern. This is a medium weight fabric. Working with velvet can lead to a little bit of a love-hate relationship. While the overall finish is beautiful and glamorous, it can be a little bit awkward to work with as the fabric wants to move about of its own accord and it can be difficult to feed into the machine. The edges of the fabric can also want to fray and curl up. For that reason I overlocked all the edges of the pieces once the pleats had been hand stitched into place. This made them much easier to work with. While the first fabric was heavy, this is a medium weight fabric which still gave a nice definition to the draping across the midriff. However, I wouldn't recommend going any lighter and using a lightweight fabric as it wouldn't support the details of the draping. The straight sleeve comes with a 3/4 and full length option with the additional feature of an elasticated gather on the bottom a couple of inches of the inside of the sleeve. I felt that adding the 3/4 length straight sleeve gave the dress an overall timeless feel compared to the first garment, and I will definitely be bringing it out come Christmas time. Interestingly, when I was getting in and out of this dress, I found I could take it on and off without having to undo the zip. If I'd done a mock-up of this dress first in this fabric and found that out during that process, I would have experimented with closing the back seam up entirely so that I didn't have to add a zip in, because if you can save yourself the time and still get in and out without affecting the garment, you may as well. I also got a much nicer shape with the V at the neckline with this fabric than I did with the first dress. And finally, let's look at the third dress up close. For this, I threw the rule book mostly out of the window and created a half and half design. The two fabrics I used were Ponte double knit fabrics in black for the bottom and a black and white small geometric print for the top. This one in particular is beautifully soft, which is why I used it for the top and the sleeves. Both are a medium weight fabric. The combination of these two fabrics I feel gives the dress a more professional look compared to the first two. That being said, I think she has more than enough personality to take you from the office to those after work Friday night drinks. To make the split in the pattern, I matched up the sides of the top section and back section together and drew a straight line across the back piece where the top section finished. With the template pinned onto the material, I drew the seam allowance straight onto the fabric with fabric chalk. With the back section in 2 halves, I sewed them together as I then layered the template over my newly formed back piece and used tailor tacks to transfer the darts to the fabric. For the sleeve, I wanted to do a short sleeve that would finish roughly in line with where the waist seam sat. To do this, I put the dress on as it was finished in one piece at this point, and then measured from the point of the shoulder down the outside of my arm as far as I wanted the sleeve to go. If you are making alterations to the sleeve, make sure that you add the slight flare you can see here to the pattern at your hem point. This is so when you turn the hem up, it won't pull on the sleeve and affect how it hangs. If I were to make this dress again, I'd want to play about more with the sleeves, perhaps using this short sleeve design but make it in black and having a contrast panel run down the side, or maybe take the sleeve from the first dress as well to see how that would work, as I feel it would go quite nicely with the personality of this dress. I hope this video has helped you understand how versatile patterns can be, as well as maybe giving you some ideas as to how to mix up your own favourite patterns. If you have any questions about anything seen in this video, comment them below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We also love seeing what you come up with, so if you haven't already, why not create an account with Minerva and share your creations with our sewing community. Thank you for watching, and be sure to come back regularly for more sewing inspiration.